Hello, everybody. This is CJ Wiley with more adventures on the road. I have a little rental car going on here. My Range Rover had been making some funny sounds, and anyway, I had a few diagnoses, but it was, these things are kind of complicated. But the story unfolded like a lot of them do in my life, and let me just give you a little example. This Sanford, North Carolina, as far as the pool world, I haven't met everybody in town, but are the coolest, nicest people that I've been around in a long time, and the funniest. One thing I loved about pool hustlers and the ones that I ran around with is the sense of humor. I mean, they're all extremely funny, and it's really caused me complications in life because sometimes I carry that humor into areas or demographics of people. I mean, still pool players, but not like I'm talking about. And I've made jokes before with people, and years later they told me they hated me for 3 years because I said something that they took out of context. And we made up. Like, if somebody hates me, I don't even, it's okay, Especially, it's hard to get in my inner circle, so I've always said if somebody doesn't like me, they don't know me well enough to make that judgment. And just like politicians, some people hate politicians just because of their beliefs, and I just never got into that world. But one of the hustlers that I used to run into all over the country in the most unusual places, like I ran into him at Sharky's, which is a little bootleg place in North Carolina by the PD River. And I've told the story of getting robbed there at gunpoint. And I don't want to go through that story again, but Charlie Bronson was his name. And he was super funny. And we had a lot of mutual friends. And the guys here in Sanford all knew him because he'd been around here quite a bit. So we were talking about him the other night, and just to give you some idea, Charlie could get stake horses. A stake horse is somebody that puts up the money for you to gamble. I was fortunate that I usually traveled with people, and we made so much money that we never really needed a stake horse. Until recent years, I'm not into the gambling anymore, so if somebody wants me to play a game, generally they're going to have to put up the money, because I don't care if I play or not. And Charlie Bronson, on the other hand, could get stake horses just like Louis Roberts. Louis Roberts has lost all his money before and went outside the pool room, stopped somebody passing by on the sidewalk, and talked them into going in the pool room and backing him in a pool game. So Charlie Bronson was from the same mold. And he convinced this money man in North Carolina that he was the third best player in the country, and that he should go on the road with him and gamble, and they were going to do well and have a lot of fun. And so the first pool room they went into was just a little regular pool room. Charlie Bronson got a game with their best player, and Charlie played him for several hours and ended up losing to the guy. So then they got him to play the second best player. He played him for a few hours and ended up losing. So they go out into the car, and this rich guy that witnessed this was like, "Man, Charlie, what happened?" And Charlie looked at him and said, "Man, what are the odds of the number one and number two player in the country being in the same pool room?" The first one that we go into. Oh my gosh. And they said he was getting ready to take a big road trip from North Carolina to California, and he jumps in his car with his wife and doesn't have a driver's license, doesn't have a current tag, doesn't have a registration. So he gets about halfway across the country, and I think he was in Oklahoma, and the police pull him over. So the policeman comes up, and he's asking Charlie some questions, and then he leans in and he goes, "So ma'am, what do you do for a living?" And she said, "Me?" He goes, "Yeah, you." I don't do anything. And the policeman's like, really? You don't do anything? So he looks back at Charlie and he says, what do you do? And he goes, I help her. And he got out of the ticket and they let him go, because humor like that is priceless. And Strong Arm John has an incredible sense of humor. Omaha John, and Dalton Leone, and Rusty Brandemeyer. And the thing about, the reason it's hard to keep up with some of it is we use slang terms that a lot of people aren't familiar with. Like George means good and Tom means bad. So Omaha John a lot of times will say, man, that's double George. Well, nobody really know what that means. That just means it's double good, or that's double Tom, or, that's just an example. But there's a lot of those words that we use that have a double meaning, and to us it's totally different. If somebody comes in and tells me that I know over there to play George, I know he means that's a good person to play. If he says go over there and play Tom, I know it's a bad person to play. So we can communicate like that in front of people, and they'll never know it. They'll never realize it, because that's just a sampled example. Anyway, if you want to know more stories and learn my techniques, fundamentals, and systems, join me at masteringpocketbears.com. And you can also reach me at cjwiley.com. And I'd like to help you reach your full potential. If you're in the North Carolina area, I can be reached for private lessons. And that's at cjwiley@cjwiley.com, or on Facebook. Leave a message and I'll get back to you if I can. Thanks.